Hi, welcome back to Salted Hash. My name is Steve Reagan, Senior Staff Writer at CSO Online. I'm in studio today with Rob Lee. He's the curriculum lead for DFIR at SANS, and we're going to be talking about some upcoming predictions for 2018. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Rob, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me here.
It's good to see you. So tell me a little bit about what you do at SANS. Let's talk about the curriculum that you're teaching people for digital forensics and incident response.
Well, I'm the lead of the digital forensics incident response curriculum, which basically entails when companies have bad things happen, these are the people that you usually call to come solve your problems. We're the MacGyvers, we're the folks that it says, hey, we're completely in a pucker factor 8 situation, and as a result of that, we need you to come potentially help save us. Most companies might have an internal team. They also might pull in outsiders to come help out. Generally, we're called when major breaches happen, but we also are involved in the side of things where you have someone potentially stealing intellectual property. I go as far as the Snowdens of the world that decide to take it upon themselves to leave the company with a bunch of intellectual property. So in that regard, anytime bad things happen, we're the ones who are called in. To another side of that coin, we also train a lot of individuals in the Intel and DoD and law enforcement communities on how to properly analyze the smartphones, computer systems, and other portable devices in the effort to prosecute or potentially be used on different various bad guy suppression efforts that occur around the world.
Excellent. So 2017 has been an interesting year. We've had a lot going on, but today we're going to talk about what the future may hold and we're going to try and beat the stigma of typical 2018 predictions by, instead of just dwelling on, oh, well, this happened this year, so it's sure to happen again. Let's think of some interesting things. Like, for example, I'll give you my 2018 prediction, okay? And you could hold me to this, all right? In 2018, somebody somewhere is going to get hacked. Hold me to that. It's going to happen. That's going to happen.
I'm not so sure.
You've heard it here first. In 2018, somebody's going to get hacked, and I'll even add one to that. Not only is somebody going to get hacked in 2018, there's another person or an organization even maybe that's going to get hacked, and yet that happened years earlier. They're only just now finding out about it. So those two predictions, rock solid. You can hold those to me. And so now let's hear your predictions for 2018.
I'll double down on your predictions. Wow, it's the predictions. What comes down to, you're exactly right. The majority of the predictions usually fall into there's going to be something bad's going to happen, and as a result of that bad thing happening, people are going to change their attitudes. And honestly, I think 2017 moving into 2018, the one thing that has become very clear for most organizations, especially at the executive management level, is that if they're not convinced now that preventable IT security is essentially dead, they need to obviously wake up and start reading newspaper headlines. It's like not a matter if you are going to be hacked and how to prevent it. It's how to matter of getting in front of it to detect it early enough so you could get in front of it and prevent the actual operational goals of your adversary, whatever that is, from occurring, meaning that they're going to be leaving the company with your intellectual property, cause sufficient damage. My prediction to that is that you're going to start to see executives start to stop treating IT security as a product that they could implement and start treating it as an operational concern as equally important as managing their finances. That they are really going to start digging in, asking very important questions, and educate themselves a lot more. You'll probably see a lot more executives start to ask hard questions, which are going to be the shock of most IT security. Saying, you've never asked this question before, but it's kind of entertaining to me that I get to answer this question now. But I think the IT, I don't think it's that far of a reach. You probably heard this one before, that the management side is going to get a lot more interested in making sure that the companies are doing a lot more to help prevent the stuff from leaving the company. And I still think, to a certain extent, the average American never really paid attention to this until the Equifax hack.
Yeah.
And I use this as an example because I had so many more neighbors who kind of knew what I did, but as soon as this happened, they said, "I think this is related to your job."
Yep.
And I said, "Yes, of course. The Equifax is directly related." I didn't respond to it, but every person I know was now affected by that. But the crazy thing is every person says, it's interesting to see how they have gone public on this. They blamed an IT guy. I noticed that in the press. They put up a website that I'm supposed to go report and give them more private information of mine to, which before I pressed the return button on that, I said, "Hey, wait a minute. This is the company that was just breached." So they're starting to ask me questions. It feels like that this was kind of like they're winging it.
Yep.
A company as large as Equifax is winging it. And I said, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
A lot more companies need to be a little bit more involved in when bad things happen. What is going to be our first 3 steps that are going to go through it? And they're going to start paying attention to using Equifax as the new target, as the new example of what not to do, so they could get in front of it a little bit more. So there's no like earth-shattering crystal ball here other than it's going to become even more important than it already is. But I definitely think we're seeing the trail end of the preventable IT security saying, hey, you could prevent colds. Use our security vendor widget to help prevent colds. No, it's going to be, can we potentially stop and detect the bad guys early enough to prevent the really bad thing from happening?
Yep. Yeah. I think sticking to that train of thought there with the management, upper management being more involved and asking more direct questions, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think one step beyond that, you're actually going to start seeing management pay attention early on when somebody makes a suggestion. One of the biggest frustrations I've ran into this year when just interviewing people at cons or going about my daily news gathering is the average IT staffer, when they make a recommendation or a suggestion coming up the line on security or any type of change in the environment to better things, it's always overlooked because it works it's working now, don't change what isn't broke type mentality. And now with further regulation coming in with I'm probably getting this backwards, but GDPR, all of the changes, and of course all the headlines related to micro changes that happened on a network that led to this big catastrophic thing. One unpatched server undid an entire billion-dollar company. I think we're going to see a lot of conversations now. When a suggestion's made, they're going to stop and really look into it. And in the long term, I think that's going to have more impact because your people on the ground really do know what they're doing, but it's trying to communicate that up the chain is where everything gets lost in translation, because 4 or 5 layers of management up, it's no longer about what needs to change on the ground. It's how will this impact the business? How will this change what we're doing? Is there any value into this? And if you can't directly speak to that, you're gonna be lost in the shuffle. They're not gonna do anything. I think that's gonna change now. And like you said, a lot of it's going to come right back to Equifax, because let's face it, that is massive. And we could poke fun of them for how they handled the whole situation, throwing some random staffer under the bus and setting up a domain that's easily phished, and oh look, somebody bought a spoofed version of it within minutes of that coming out. I think that's easy to pick apart, but really when you look down at it, this is an infrastructure so wide, so diverse and scattered out that they really did have a hard time keeping track of everything. And those type of on-the-ground type of changes and suggestions, that's going to filter up. And I think now, because of that, people are going to start paying attention. We're going to see more of that. What else do you think is going to come down the pipe in 2018?
They switch from focusing on vendor tools as a solution and starting to refocus and doubling down on hiring and sustaining the right team. That too many times you're starting to see, who's in charge of the security teams. Are they actual player coaches? Or do we just find someone, hey, you have management smarts, come in here and run this team? That doesn't work. You're not managing a bunch of, widgets. It's not, we're going to win a war by shipping a bunch of guns and bullets to an area and region of the world and cross our fingers. You actually have to have trained and operational troops to understand what's going on. And I have a lot of executives that I talk to that says, well, I don't know where to find those people. Where am I going to find that individual that could help lead the team that I need to find the college grad that they know that there's that, spark that they need to, come on my team. I'm going to take care of you, to the mid-level person who is a security engineer analyst that's going to be working a tier 2 part of the SOC, all the way up to the team lead. Those people already exist. In a lot of cases, they're actually sitting at a lot of the large incident response companies that are out there. And the reason why these companies would be able to potentially say, hey, come and work for me is sanity. Yeah. You would actually be able to say, hey, listen, you're working over at this, really amazing hotshot group, special operators. If you come on my team, I just noticed you got married, you have a family, we're going to be able to compensate you the same, if not a little bit more, tweak it a little bit. You're going to be able to do your job from home. You're not going to have to travel near as much, but I want you to bring the people on that will help you do the best job possible. And the person will sit there and look at that and says, I actually like that. I spent the past 5 years on the road, just like you feel like you're in the military, and I'd like to settle down a little bit. Those are the people that you need because they know how this works. And you go back to your point about listening. They're going to start listening to what these individuals say. If you don't have that person whispering in your ear that you trust implicitly about they've seen it across hundreds of companies, just like the one that you hired them into, that is the person that you need to help guide your entire IT security organization. And I wouldn't put them as a CISO level. They could still be talking to the CISO at this point, but I would definitely, you need your Scotty of the Starship Enterprise, and you need to find that person.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of these organizations are going to start figuring out, I need the right team to run all these wonderful, magical widgets that I've purchased over the years from these vendors. And a lot of them are really good tools, but without a really skilled operator behind them, they're worthless. You might as well just put them back on the shelf.
Yeah. Now that you bring that up, another thing that I think is worth considering and looking at is the fact that you're going to see a lot of development for security teams that come from outside of the security group. Traditionally, it's always somebody that comes from IT and they fall into security and everything like that. I think you're going to see more developers get pulled into security. You're going to see a lot of engineering type of settings get pulled in security because they're all valid takes on a problem that you can filter in.
And part of the reason for that, and you're exactly right, every time that we're doing incident response somewhere, half of the solutions that we're engineering are coming from someone says, hey, listen, I could code that up right now. It's almost like DevOps for security in order to solve a problem that's immediate. I need to patch all these systems using a technique I've never seen because of WannaCry that came out.
Yep.
How are we going to patch it? And that's
tappity.
You have to have someone. Here, I will create that. Let me test it on our lab net. Let me throw it out on the network now. Looks like we're good. But you can't do that with the average individual. You actually need someone who actually has operational skills, who've done this on live networks before. Where do you find those people? The DevOps side is a really good amalgamation from, hey, I'm a developer and I'm worried about, this operational impact of this. They exist. They just haven't, a lot of them are actually getting the security side right now because they actually find it a puzzle that they have not yet had a chance to whack the baton at.
Nope. So I'm kind of going to break my own rule, but yet it's still a thing that concerns me for 2018. And I can honestly say, I hope I'm wrong. I really don't want it to get this bad, but my fear is that ransomware is going to evolve to more focused type of environments, to where it's no longer going to be encrypt 1,000 machines and hope 2 or 3 of them drop $500 or $600. I think they're literally going to start targeting people with specific types of infrastructures or environments or data, and they're going to customize the ransomware to target only that. And the prices are going to go sky high. I think right now the average asking price is like a Bitcoin or maybe even 2 to get a system recovered. Now imagine waking up and you're a hospital administrator and all your EMRs are now encrypted. Congratulations. I'll need $5 million to get them back, or $1 million to get them all back. But that kind of thing scares the life out of me because I'm genuinely concerned that that's where we're going, because now that everybody's so familiar with ransomware and they know how it propagates and they know how to stop it to some degree and deal with it, the criminals have to up their game to keep themselves relevant. Otherwise, that's just a vertical that's going to go away in their market. Unfortunately, the only way to make it in their world is to make it worse, and that's about as worse as we can get right now. So that would, what do you think? Am I barking up the wrong tree, or do you actually see that as a...
I'm going to up your ante
great.
Here and double down on that and saying, actually, I think it's not that it's making it more difficult. There were still the lowest threshold capability is now being proliferated into the hands of people who really do not know what they're doing with it.
Oh yeah, the
And
turnkey.
You use look at the WannaCry example and others. It's like, could WannaCry have been an actual huge payday for a hacker group if they executed it properly? And they didn't. But it shows you're starting to get this weapons grade capability into the hands of children to a certain extent. And I use it in terms of novice hackers, those who are just skilled enough to know, hey, I could create something.
Skitties, script kiddies.
And move it into a capability that says, I'm going to target that hospital over there because all I have to do is send an email in that says, here's a fax you need to open, and they'll open it and it'll be infected on that host. So we're starting to see that proliferation occur much more, and the brazenness of the criminals behind it. They're looking at all their friends. No one's being prosecuted for this stuff, by and large. And the fact that there's almost zero threat of arrest that still exists today. And of course, some law enforcement says, no, we are making arrests, we're making headway, we are, yes, I give you that. But the curve on the people trying it,
few
and
and
the
far
curve
between
of arrests, is more steady. This hockey stick curve is the one that is really the concerning one to me, is that you're starting to get more people says, I'm going to try it because the likelihood of me getting prosecuted and actually thrown in jail for this is pretty near zero.
Yeah.
I'd probably have a better chance of winning the lottery than actually going to jail and serving time if I throw ransomware at a hospital.
Imagine winning the lottery and then you get arrested the same day.
Well, then you get arrested the same day. But wham, look at that. How about this money? I could post my bail now at least. But it's that proliferation effect that we're starting to see. And so, especially now that we have the NSA tools that are being widely distributed. People are starting to see examples of much more publicized the way APTs work. Yeah. And they're learning from each other. It used to be these little enclaves of knowledge that is now everyone knows how to do it.
Yeah.
They're starting to see that work for this group, APT 29 versus APT 28 versus whatever the names that people are using. They're all sharing the techniques, and they're also being observed by the hacktivists down to the, someone sitting in their basement deciding, hey, I wonder if I could earn $10 if I throw this at an organization, the local fire station, just to see if they'll click on and open it. I ransomware the fire station, and that's the concern that you have.
Yeah. So moving up a little bit, earlier when we started off the show, I said that 2017 has been a really interesting year. So considering everything that's happened in security this year, what is one thing that stood out to you that either, made you scream in a fit of rage or just stand back and wonder and go, wow, that's really cool? And you don't have to stay to just one thing. You can name a number, but if you were to think of some items, what would they be for you?
On the top of my list, when I look back at the year, the thing that I feel most people some have to pay attention to this. Others are kind of like, oh, that'll never happen here. I really don't need to wake up to that threat, which is the likelihood of a nation state deciding to, instead of moving from an intellectual property theft style game, that they move into, let's affect a power grid. Yeah. And that's the big boogeyman everyone talks about, but we've actually started to see hardcore examples of this utilized around the world. And you don't have to go very far to start reading reports in the ICS community. They're starting to wake up to this. But you talk to the average person in your neighborhood about the likelihood of the power going out, and they're like, yeah, power line goes down. And I said, well, what would happen if it goes out for a week? You talk about ransomware attacks. Again, you could hit a power grid. You have this capability that do exist. Everyone knows the different countries out there who have capabilities now. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to edge toward a geopolitical framework that the likelihood of a shooting war starting with a cyber conflict is extremely high. And so we go back in the Intel, community prediction, like within the next 5 years, what is the likelihood a power grid in the U.S. is actually going to be shut down as a result of another country deciding to say, I'm going to prove a point. And you start to see the numbers start to increasingly start to go north of 50%.
Yep.
And that's where you almost got to prepare your neighbors for, like, when the power goes out, what is your plan? Do you have, it almost becomes like a small-time prepper thing, and people know me a little bit. I actually bring this up a little bit. It's like, well, if that does happen, what have you ever given thought to that? Because we're so dependent on it today. We see this in every single major natural cause incident, from the hurricanes all the way down, what happens down in Puerto Rico and the like. And we see that what happens without power, it's devastating.
Yeah, you're pretty much, you have a choice. You're either prepared for it and you had an answer ahead of time, or you're hoping, Elon Musk shows up with his solar grid and maybe he can help you out later. But otherwise, you're right. You're just going to be sitting
And I'm
there.
not trying to oversell that. This isn't a cyber Pearl Harbor or anything else. But do I start to see this past year a significant uptick in evidence that the likelihood is going to happen in a shorter time frame than 10 years from now. It's starting to mount up.
Yeah.
Is what the main point is.
And for me, I am absolutely petrified that somebody will do something stupid or say something dumb, online, or play around with the wrong system, and we absolutely start a war because somebody used the internet to attack or probe or just poke at a fancy bear or something like that. And then
Right.
the next thing it is, we have a kinetic situation that literally started from the push of a button.
Right.
And that leads me to another interesting thing from this year, at least from my perspective, is how connected a lot of these groups seem to be when you strip away the surface. We've got now our own Justice Department placing indictments on foreign adversaries for, how long until the script is flipped, though? And we have to face that too, because there are a lot of people who are no longer working that did really good work for their country that now, if the tables were turned, they're sitting ducks. What are they going to do? I mean, it's a catch-22. I understand why they want to do that, but so that was my standout thing this year, is actually watching the Justice Department name foreign actors and indict them. That was a wow moment for me.
There is a lot of, are you prosecuting a soldier and before going to combat? And that's essentially, are they under direction of a foreign government who's doing this and saying this is part of your orders? And of course, that entire question comes up. The following orders question. Are you illegal or illegal at that point? Again, the laws of what are we following at this point?
Yeah.
These things are. It's interesting. Just like what's going to happen when data breach reporting requirements. Why are you notified at a certain point later? Are executives going to go to jail because they did not follow the law? How is there? It's this. The legal side to this is. It's a Wild West game at this point. And the fact that DOJ has done the indictments, just like you mentioned, it is surprising because the likelihood of U.S. actors that were, cyber operators being named directly and saying if you fly to a certain country where there's extradition rights, there's a likelihood you'll be picked up.
Yeah, ding, ding, you're done.
You're done. And, we both have friends who fall into that spectrum. It is a concern. I'm not saying that DOJ is wrong. I'm not saying that DOJ is right either. It's just I hope that they have thought that one out and are doing the chess game, looking at the pieces that move 5 moves in to see what is the impact if we do this.
I want to believe that they are, and they really do take this stuff into consideration before they pass these indictments. But without jumping into a whole black tar pool of political debate, my big fear, though, is some of these indictments, or maybe even some of the ones that are coming down the pipe, are purely political motivated, and that's a problem. Because when you start mixing that type of sanction within the law, now you really do put people at risk, because it's not a secret who these people were or what they did, but at the same time, it's a secret who these people were and what they did. I mean, you can't expose, and I'm not really worried about everybody that lives here in the country. I'm worried about those that are still overseas. What happens? They're not protected by us. They can't, like you said, you fly to a country that has an extradition, pop, you're gone. I mean, you get arrested on site, you're done. And we've all seen that show on Discovery Channel. Being arrested overseas apparently is no fun, and I don't want to have anybody have to be part of that because they were simply doing their job.
Right.
And we can't argue at least not now, not with cyber. We can't really say, well, I was only taking orders. Well, you should have known your orders were morally wrong or ambiguous. No, not when it came to computers, especially back then, because that was never a consideration. Going back a decade or so, that's not a conversation anybody was having. In fact, going back a decade or so, seeing any kind of network infiltration or type of action was still really, really brand new, untested in some cases. So, yeah, indictments for stuff that you did back then, you can't really hold it. Yeah, but that goes to your point. If they were operating on behalf of a foreign government, well, then. What exactly?
There are laws that cover that, on the books at this point, under Title 10, Title 50 for ours, Geneva Convention, it's kind of ironed out. But again, this is at what point is this you're a uniformed member of a service that is carrying out said order? Then again, it goes very legal. The other, you're talking about very similar to this, is in terms of legal ties into a major issue that's happened the past year. That's going to be, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg that's going to blow out from this point forward, is the geopolitical influence of data exfiltration from internal networks such as those owned by politicians, candidates for high-level positions, and more. We go, to the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Right or wrong in that, it's you have a politician that literally is trying to describe file wiping about email to the general public, and they were like, oh yeah, I guess that sounds like a thing. And then everyone in the IT community is scratching their heads like, wait a minute, email is like one of the darndest things you have ever been asked to delete. It's impossible to get rid of it. One email will generate literally 10 copies if you send it between two people. And so I think we're really at the beginning, because of the age and time where the internet, started. We're 20 years into it plus at this point, where we start seeing people regularly using it. The likelihood from every point forward here that we're going to have a massive release of documents and emails and everything of that person's life is going to become so prolific, because they're sitting somewhere. All someone has to do is say, we're going to access it, we're going to release it. The WikiLeaks is that's have occurred during this last election. This is the way every election is going to be from this point forward. Every presidential candidate is going to be held to, it can't get much worse. We're not going to be able to elect someone who is at a different level. And then 40 years from now, we're going to be looking at pictures posted from someone's frat parties from the late 90s.
Yep.
Because this is what's going to happen. And I think that kind of mindset, it serves two purposes, which is good for my kids, which is, look, everything you post online and you generate
forever
is forever potentially burned into, the ether. And again, I really, applaud efforts that have recently come out in the past couple weeks, is, just like even talking about the topic of revenge porn. It's not a cybersecurity, topic directly, but you end up looking at it. Are they going to be able to prosecute someone for posting that? And their efforts in Congress, it says we want to make that a felony. Yep. And it ends up changing the dynamic a little bit, because who's going to be asked to make that determination? What are the provable elements? From my perspective, we deal with forensics, and I look at this from the smartphones, the data collection devices, the IoT devices. We're really sitting on this. I have to explain to people constantly. The good example I have is the Alexa recording you. Is that constantly listening in on you? And I said, funny you mentioned that. And I said, you have an Apple iPhone in front of you. And they're like, yeah, so what? So you're concerned about an Alexa recording you? And they're like, okay, I don't get it. And I immediately just really loudly say, hey, Siri. Bloop, bloop. And it goes up, and the look on their face is just, oh my God. It's like, so my device, I said, your TV as well. We're not going to cross hairs here. Your TV, your car, your Alexa, how many of these devices, could potentially be in recording mode from this point forward in your life? And I said, it's, this is a huge tipping point that has occurred in the past year, where the Alexa has entered into the system that everything you do could be recorded. Everything from this point forward, every politician's going up for election, every piece of their private life is probably going to come out.
Yeah.
It's all going to come out. And we're the ones who are asked to investigate it. It's like, hey, there's a possible bad guy here. Can you look at their Alexa and determine if there's anything on there? And it's, these devices are geared to, and people say, why are they spying me? I said, but they're actually gearing themselves to make it a more useful device by learning about you. It wants to learn everything about you, your favorites. What is your calendar? What is your favorite drink at Starbucks? When are you going to go somewhere? Hey, warning, in order to make this interview, it alerts me you should leave now.
Yep.
How does it know I need to be here? This oddly useful assistant, but also eerily it crosses into the
creepy
privacy side. So it's, again, security, privacy have this collision that occurs, in the sense that, security there to help protect privacy, or security there to help enable privacy, or both sides of that, to enable the collection on an individual. Yeah. It's a Wild West moment that I think,
it is.
Everyone else I never heard of considering at-home smart home devices, the Alexa is the first one that they bought. And I said, it's from that point, once you realize it could do additional things other than play music, then it's just a matter of 5 years until you do this. And I remember, and you probably do as well, when was the last time you heard someone say, I will never get a cell phone? I'm not going to be that person. But I remember half of my friends in the late 90s said, I'm never going to be tied to a device.
It was just after, so the beeper was what everybody was tied to, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting a cell phone.
I'm not getting a cell phone.
I'll never be tied to that.
Never going to be tied." Yeah, exactly. And of course, 5 years later, everyone has one. And I said the same thing. Self-driving cars is another example of that. And it's like, I will never get behind a self-driving car. I said, well, you will if they take your keys from you.
I wish I could afford a self-driving car. I'd be behind that bad boy in a minute. But no, I mean, it's a very valid thing. I mean, as things progress, it's going to either become more convenient and everybody just accepts it, you eventually get one, it's forced on you and you're going to take it anyway. It doesn't matter. I think the only real scary part, and unfortunately the sad part, would be like if you get called in to do a DFIR and they're like, this data's coming out, what's going on? And it turns out it's just an open S3 bucket, so it's all right there anyway. That would be...
Wait, what? That hasn't happened in the press the past couple of weeks? I don't know what you're talking about.
That would just be horribly funny and sad at the same time. Rob, it's been fun. Thank you for coming out here and hanging out with me. I appreciate it. This has been a good time.
Thanks for having me.
So, if are you on Twitters? Are you on the Twitters?
I'm on the Twitters.
Where can people find you on the Twitters?
It's Rob T. Lee, just one word, no underscores.
Excellent. So again, thanks for coming to hang out. My name is Steve Reagan. This has been Salted Hash. You can check us out at CSO Online. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.